Did it start? Yes, it is recording. Cool. Awesome. Hi guys. Today I'm gonna, go through the whole setup process of JavaFX and then create the essential meme that's been going around all of 2020 about technology. The one that doesn't have to do with the pandemic, which is pretty weird but pretty cool that it's been going along at the same time as this pandemic. The one where it's like height calculator tool, input your height, you type in a number and hit a button and it pops up a window that just says the same thing you typed in. It's going to be fun, it's going to be chill, and it's going to be good. So let me share my screen. Right, I assume y'all can see it. This is the meme that I was referring to. Height calculator, input your height, there's a text box and a button, and then it pops up the result. Your height is whatever you typed in. Awesome. Ours is going to look a little different from that just because that's what I want to do, but that's okay. So at this point, I asked you guys to already have the JDK 13 downloaded. Whether you are on Mac or Windows, just double click on the installer, it'll do its thing. That's not the hard process. So for JavaFX, we're going to be using, JavaFX, the main version, whatever the long-term version is, JavaFX 11. So what you're going to want to do is go to openjafx.io. Let me pop that in the chat if I can open it. Openjafx.io. And that's where you get JavaFX. If you just Google JavaFX, that's where it'll go to, which is awesome. So we're going to go down, download. It's going to pop up this tab. We want the long-term support for either, Windows or Mac, depending on what you're running, or Linux if you want to be that nerd. The Windows SDK or whatever SDK. We don't care about the JMods. We don't care about the SDK. We don't care about ARM. So just, download whichever one you're on, and it'll download pretty fairly quickly. It's only like 40 megabytes. Once it downloads, it's a zip, so you can go ahead and you can unzip it and put it wherever you want, somewhere safe, somewhere you won't delete it or move it. Because pretty much once you put it somewhere, if you move this JavaFX SDK to somewhere else, you're going to have to repoint your IntelliJ and your Java to this SDK. So for me, I just moved it to my home folder, to this nice little folder I made called JavaFX SDK. And you just want the lib, and if you're on Windows, also the bin folder, just in there. Okay, awesome. Now that we have it somewhere, we're going to keep that window open and just kind of in the corner so we know where it is. And we can go ahead and open up our IntelliJ and create a new project. Awesome. So you can go through the JavaFX template, but I usually prefer to just go through the Java way because sometimes the JavaFX template misses things or doesn't, like the versions get mismatched or something. I just prefer to go through the normal Java way. It's like maybe 2 or 3 more steps, and in my experience, things work better personally. But if you have luck doing the JavaFX template, that is perfectly fine. Feel free to do that. But we're going to go through the Java right now. So under Project SDK, you might have multiple versions here from multiple JDKs you've downloaded, but we're going to be using Java 13, JDK 13. And we don't care about Groovy or Kotlin or SQL, so we're going to just hit next and next again and give this a name. So let's name this meme because we're making the meme. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So now we're in our IntelliJ. So let's go ahead and make our main class because we just want a class called main at the beginning. Pretty simple. So in our main is, it has to actually be a JavaFX main. It has to extend JavaFX's application, which is not showing up yet because we have not told it to point to JavaFX. So what we need to do before we can say extends application and that actually be correct, so we have to go to File and then to Project Structure. And that'll pull up your project structure window. And under that, we need to go to Libraries and hit the little plus button. We want to add a project library. We want to add JavaFX's SDK, its library, to our project. Because right now it's just downloaded and it exists on our computer, but IntelliJ and Java do not know where to find it. So we want to add it. So it'll pull up and you just want to go to wherever you found it and just select the lib folder. Not anything inside the lib folder, just the lib folder, and hit open. And then it'll be like, lib will be added to the selected modules. That's okay. And if everything works, you should get something that looks similar to this. Then we'll hit OK. And if we retype application, we'll see an application that's coming from javafx.application. Now, whenever we get these little pop-ups, we want to make sure we're choosing the one that's from JavaFX, because as you can see, there's one here that comes from com.sun. That's not what we want. There's going to be ones that come from java.awt. There's going to be ones that come from a whole bunch of things. We want the ones that come from JavaFX. And the main thing that does by choosing the JavaFX one is it gets the correct import. It gets the JavaFX import, not the other imports, but the ones that we actually want. So that's a little gotcha that it'll pop up and do. And if you get the wrong one, you just backspace that line and do it again. So anyways, now we have our main extends application. And that's saying, hey, this thing, it's not done yet. It's red, it's squiggly. So of course, we need our main method. And additionally, application is behind the scenes an abstract class that says that we need to implement the start method. So just by typing start and hitting enter, it'll give us that override for start and all of its whatever that comes from the application. And so that is fine for now. So that for now is going to be our main class. We will be putting more things in here. This just satisfies what JavaFX needs bare bones. So now we are also going to create a new class for our controller. And that's just going to be a plain old class, nothing special about it. And we are also going to go to make a new fxml file. An fxml file is the easy way of defining your JavaFX views. It's the easy way of laying it out instead of doing it all through code. We're going to do a little bit through code towards the end, but fxml is the main way to do it. It's the way that they want us to do it in our lab and assignment. So that's what we're going to be doing for the main bulk. At the end, we'll make a little bit through code because it's just kind of fun, and it's nice to know what you're doing with the fxml file and what it's doing behind the scenes. But for now, we're just making the fxml file. So we can name this whatever we want. Let's name it view. Why not? And so it'll pop up in this XML view, and it should already have this view highlighted for us. Now what this part is, this is saying FX controller. What is the controller for this view? Well, our controller is actually going to be named controller. It's our controller class that we have up here already. So we can get rid of view and just type controller, and it should just pop up, and that's good for right now. Now we go down and we can choose the scene builder. Scene builder is where things get pretty. It might pop up and be like, hey, you don't have scene builder installed. That's okay, just tell it to install it. It should be done in like 15 seconds. And once that is finished, you should have this scene builder. And it looks something like this, where this is like our window. It has an anchor pane and a whole bunch of things that we can choose from to add to our anchor pane. We got controls, menus, miscellaneous things, just a whole bunch of fun stuff that we can add to our view. So this is basically a drag and drop environment to where we can add whatever we want to our view and manipulate it here visually, as opposed to doing it through code and trying to visualize it in our head while we're typing it. Now, I have some issues with this scene builder inside IntelliJ. I don't know why it seems to crash on my machine a lot. Like it'll just freeze up and I'll have to close out of it and open up the fxml file again. And that gets really annoying to do. So a wonderful thing that the people who made JavaFX did for us is they made this scene builder as a standalone download that you can just download. So it's the same scene builder that's in IntelliJ, just as its own separate download. This one seems to crash a significant amount less than the one inside IntelliJ, but they are both literally the exact same thing. One is just inside another application. So you're free to use whichever one you want. If you want to use this one, like I'm going to be using, you can download it there. If not, that is perfectly fine. You can just use the one inside IntelliJ. It is up to you. So anyways, you download it, you install it, Windows or Mac or Linux, whatever. And then once that is downloaded, you open it up and you tell it to point to an open project, and it is wherever that project is saved, meme, view.fxml. So we're just opening that fxml file in this scene builder because it works better in my experience. So anyways, whenever we add something, so if we make it so we can see both, if we were to add, say, a label to this view and just kind of put it right there and go to File, Save, we'll see it appear over here. So you can tell they're linked together. But anyways, we don't want that label there, so we're going to get rid of it. And whenever we save and go back to IntelliJ, that one will update. So we're just going to put it behind so we don't have to see it. So what we want to do now is we just kind of want to make the general layout of this app. So the basic way we're going to do that is with a grid pane. Grid panes are awesome. They let you lay out your views in a sort of grid idea. So things are laid out, kind of like they would be if you were using Excel to lay things out. It just makes it pretty easy. And it's pretty standard to use a grid pane. So we just drag the grid pane into our view inside the anchor plane. Down here we can see our view hierarchy, what's inside of what. We can see grid pane is inside of anchor pane. Pretty easy. Now we could drag it and make it full screen like that, but sometimes that screws up. If you resize the window, things might not get resized properly. So the better way to do it is in this layout tab of the scene builder. And here we have constraints, so that we can say how big this grid pane should be in relation, like where it should go to. So really for this, we just kind of want it really close to the edges, but not right at the edges. So we're just going to make all these values 8, and it'll stretch it in real time to be very close to the edges, but still, a little bit away from them. So it's not all the way at the edges. It gives us a little bit of padding around our grid pane. It's okay to use zeros there or tens. I prefer personally to use multiples of 2, or 2 powers of 2, just because that's what I like to do. You don't have to. You're free to put zeros or tens or 5s or whatever you want there. I just like 8s because I think it looks kind of nice. So we only want, as you can see here in our grid pane, we have 1 column, 2 columns, and 1, 2, 3 rows. So we only want 1 column, so we can select this column 1 and right-click delete it. So now we only have 1 column, 1 main column. And I'm okay with these 3 rows. So now let's put in a label up here that's just kind of like a title. It's going to say something like enter your height. So the labels are under controls for some reason. And we're just going to drag it and put it in there, inside that top column. Now, as you can see, as soon as we put it in there, it shoved it all the way at the left edge of this column, all the way at the left edge of this row. And that's not really what we want. We kind of want it to be centered, right? So if we have that label selected, over here in our inspector under the Layout tab, there is a H alignment, horizontal alignment. we want to change that from inherit to center. So it's just going to center it for us horizontally. And that is awesome. So now we can go to the properties tab of this inspector and change the text that's in the label to, I don't know, enter your height. And we can make the font, we can make it bigger, and we can make it bold if we want. So it's just, it looks like a title now. It's a little bigger, a little better. Awesome. So right now that's just our view. It just says enter your height up there. And down here at the bottom, we're going to eventually want a button. So we can go ahead and put the button in down here in our bottom row. And again, it'll shove it all the way to the left if we just go back to our layout and horizontal alignment, center it. That just shoves it in the center. Awesome. And we can make this button say something like calculate height. There we go. It makes the button the right size for us, and it just says calculate height. It's fine. We can leave it at 13 pixels font size if we want, or make it bigger or smaller, or bold, or italicized, or make the text color something different, whatever you want. But we're just going to leave it as is. So, awesome. Now, if we take a look back at our meme, we see here that this meme has the text field where the user inputs text next to where it says centimeters. So it kind of looks like it's a unit attached to that. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put things left and right from each other. So in this center row here, we are actually going to want another container, another grid pane, just kind of in this center row. Now, we don't really want rows, rows 1 or 2 from this grid pane inside the grid pane. Yes, this is a grid pane inside a grid pane. If we look over here, grid pane, there's one inside the other. That's just kind of how things work. Okay, so we want 2 columns for this inner grid pane, but only 1 row. So we can put something left and right from each other. Now inside that, back into our controls area of our library, we can bring out the text field into the left column and a label into the right column. Sometimes you got to get it so it highlights the right column or whatever column you're putting stuff in. Now that's going to shove that label to the left edge of that column. That's okay. That's what we want for right now. We don't really want to center it. We want it up close to the text field. Awesome. Now we can pretty this up a little bit for this text field. If we have it selected, we can see it's selected down there. We can go into its properties. The prompt text is, the grayed out text that kind of tells you what to type in here. So height, there, it looks like it says height. When the user starts typing, that height will go away and be replaced with whatever they type. Awesome. Now, if we just go back and have our inner grid pane selected, we can also, in the layout, select the H gap, horizontal gap. So if we look right now, this text field and this label, they bump right up against each other. They are right up together. They are basically hugging. And in the time of social distancing, that's not really appropriate. So we're going to give them, a little bit of a gap horizontally between the two of them. So again, I just like 8. You're free to use 6 or 2 or 1 or 17, whatever you want. The bigger it is, the wider the gap. So, just put a little bit of a gap there horizontally between the two. That just kind of, separates them away from each other. Now they're social distancing and they're all happy. Awesome. Good to go. So for now, we are also going to select this button, go back to our button, and in code, we need to give things that we want to be, we want to give things that we want to be able to access from our code an FX ID, so an identity. What is the name of this button? We're going to call this button calculate button. Something simple. We'll get a little warning up here. We can ignore it for right now. And so we want to know when this button is tapped. We'll get to that. We just want to be able to do something with this button in code, so it needs an ID. We also want to be able to get the text out of this, this text field. We want to be able to get its text out so we can display it on the new window. So again, fxid, we'll call this height text field. There we go. Another warning, that's OK. And additionally, this label over here needs to just say something. So we'll say inches. There we go, so it doesn't just say label. Now this label up here and this inches label, they don't need to have an ID because we do not need to get to them from the code. They are static. They are just going to stay as is. They're not going to be modified when the code is running. It's just going to stay as it is. That is OK. A-OK. So now if we go back over and file save, it saves it. And we pop back over here. There it is in our IntelliJ scene builder. So we know it all copied over and saved properly. OK. Awesome. Now we can hop back over to our controller. And if we remember, our view.fxml file has somewhere in it fx:controller is pointing to that controller. So that's how the two of them are linked together. This view.fxml file says, hey, my controller's name is literally controller. That's how it knows the two are linked up together. No other fancy way. That's it. So if we look back at our view, back at our, we want to be able to get the text field and the button in our code. So the text field had the code ID of height text field, and the button had the ID of calculate button. We want to get those in our code, and that is super simple. We want a public. Let's start with the text field. So it is a text field. Make sure you're grabbing the one from JavaFX, not the one from java.awt. They're two different things. We want the JavaFX one so that it imports the proper JavaFX import. That'll throw up an import, JavaFX scene control text field. Awesome. And this variable name needs to be the same as this text field's ID, height text field. So we're just going to copy that and paste it right there. And as soon as we do that, it turns purple. It's purple because it knows that it is there in our view. Whereas if it were named something else, so if it were height text field 1, now it's gray because it doesn't know that it exists. But when the name of the variable matches the ID in our scene builder, the two will be linked up together. So now whenever we say height text field dot blah, 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 it'll happen to our actual view. We don't have to link that up ourselves. It just happens for us. So similarly, we want a public button from JavaFX. That adds another import for us up there. And we want it to have the same name. So we can copy that name from over there and paste it there. And it turns purple again. That means that it is all good. If you're in light mode, it might not be purple. Whatever color it is, as long as it turns another color, that means that they are linked together and we are good to go. Additionally, we can see over here that, hey, it's giving us a little icon saying, hey, I know this is linked to the JavaFX file because it has the same JavaFX icon. Awesome, 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 awesome. Now, we also want to attach an action to our button so that when we click the button, it does something. Now, in order to do anything in programming, of course, we need a method. So let's create a method. We'll call it public void because it doesn't need to return anything. Let's go with on calculate button pressed. So whenever the calculate button was pressed, bam. And it needs to take a parameter, and the parameter has to be an action event. That's just how these event handlers work. That's just kind of how it works. So it takes an action event from javafx.event, not java.awt. Takes an action event, and we'll just call it action event because it doesn't matter. We're not actually going to use this action event. It just has to exist. OK. Awesome. So now it exists. Our method, importantly, exists. So if we hop back over to our scene builder, well, first we're going to save this file, just in case. Save all. Just to make sure that the scene builder sees the changes. If we go to our calculate height button and the on action under code, we should be able to click on it and something pulls up. Button. Yeah, there we go. On action, we get a little down arrow here. And when we click on it, we see it's pulling up that name, on calculate button press, that same function name that we have right here. So that means that the view can see that function. It sees that it exists. So we're going to choose that function. And so now, whenever an action happens to this button, and an action for a button is the button being clicked. So whenever the button is clicked, it's going to call on calculate button pressed. And if we go back over to save and pop back over here, we see that that method went from being gray to being yellow, because suddenly it's being called from somewhere. Someone is calling this method at some point in time. This method is being used. So that means that everything is working so far. Everything is good to go for right now. So for right now, let's just print out a simple little print statement. The button was clicked, period. OK, just so we have something. We get some kind of feedback when the button is clicked. Now, we need to actually hop back over to our main.java and finish setting it up. Now that we have our controller and our fxml file created, we need to actually do something with them. So if we hop back over into main, the main method needs to do one thing. It just needs to call launch. Launch comes from application, so we don't have to define what launch is. Launch comes from JavaFX's application class, the abstract class that we are inheriting from. And we want to launch with whatever the args were that were passed into main. So launch args. That is all that main does, the main method. Now our start method is called by JavaFX after launch is called. So, launch sets up its own things and gets JavaFX ready for us to use. And then it calls start and passes us a stage. A stage extends JavaFX's window. So a stage is just a fancy version of a window, essentially. So what we're going to want to do from here is we need to, define what our window kind of is. So first we want to call parent from JavaFX. So we're going to create a parent video or a parent variable. We'll call it root because it'll be the root object in our view. And it's going to be from fxml loader, fxml loader from JavaFX. It's going to be from fxml loader. We're going to call the load function from fxml loader. That is going to tell it, hey, load some fxml. And the URL that it is we're just going to call get class. That is the class name main dot get resource. So that'll get another file in the same folder as this class. So this resource that we're getting is called whatever this file is called, and this file is called view.fxml. That is going to load up our fxml, our view, this view that we have created. Awesome. Now it is loaded into a variable and it is being held onto for us. Awesome. Now let's actually configure this window a little bit, this stage. So we're going to say stage.setTitle. Set title is the title that's up in, the title bar of the window. So we're going to set that title to height calculator tool. Awesome. So it's going to say height calculator tool at the top of the window. Awesome. And then after that, now we've kind of configured our stage a little bit. We're going to create a scene. A scene is, an area inside a window. So a window has a scene. The window just kind of holds stuff and places it out visually on the screen, whereas the scene is what's actually inside the window. So a scene, we'll call it scene because why not? Well, we want a scene from JavaFX, so it gets that import for us. We'll call it scene, because what else would we call it? And it's going to be a new scene. And the scene needs three things passed into it. The topmost layout object, in this case, the root, our parent, the fxml, the actually loaded view. It takes in that view, and a width and a height in pixels. So we're going to make this 300 by 400. So it's going to be a little taller than it is wide. So it's going to look like it's in portrait, like you're holding your phone up and down. Awesome. Now we have a scene. Now our stage, our window, the stage is the window again. The stage, we have to set its scene to our scene. And that'll throw our root, our fxml, into the scene, and that scene will be thrown into the stage. The stage is the window. So our actual view will be thrown into the window content here, and the window content will be thrown into the actual window, the scene. Awesome. So far, so good. Now we need to do stage.show. So it'll actually show the stage. It'll show the window. It'll just load the window and show it at the end of our start method. Awesome. I think we are good from here. Now, a little bit of a spoiler alert. When we run this, we're going to get an error, and it's going to look confusing. So don't be alarmed when that happens. We're going to run main, and it's going to try to run, and we just get an error. Now, what error is this? What does this mean? Well, this basically means, hey, the library was imported, but when it actually compiles, it doesn't know where to find it. So to do that, we're going to go to either the run menu here and edit configurations, or this little where it says main here and edit configurations. So we're going to, and in VM options, virtual machine options, under the main application area, we are going to shove in this guy right here that I'm going to throw in chat. This is why we still wanted that window open. So what this is it's telling Java, hey, load this module path, whatever the path is. I'll show you how to get that in a second. And add the modules javafx.controls and javafx.fxml. That's what that's doing. So now, why we still have this window open? So if you are on Mac, you are going to right-click on it and hold down Alt or Option and hit copy lib as path name. If you're on Windows, you hold down Shift and right-click on the lib folder and copy file path or whatever it says. So we're going to copy that path name, that file path, after we first throw this thing back into the VM options. Get rid of the squiggly brackets here. Copy that path name so that it can actually find JavaFX. So it should be something like dash dash module path, the actual path to the lib folder. So for me, it's users, Turner Eason, JavaFX SDK, lib, because that's just where I have it saved. It might be in your downloads or somewhere else, wherever you have it. And additionally, there should be, the dash add modules, JavaFX controls, and JavaFX fxml. So I'll tell it, hey, load these modules, load this stuff. And we're going to hit OK there. And now when we try to write again, it should not load. OK, that was unexpected. Woohoo. Oh, that meant to be a dash dash. Not the dash add modules. Should have been dash dash add modules. My bad. Copy paste issue. Dash dash add modules. That should fix that. And now we have a window, and there's our view with our text field. It says inches and a button. Now, if we go back, before we go further, are there any questions, any issues? Any problems? Anything going wrong? Are we all good? Okay, I assume we're all good. If a chat bubble comes up and I don't see it, feel free to speak out. Feel free to interrupt me. I will not bite too hard. Okay, so now we have our window. This is our stage, and our stage inside our stage has our scene. The scene is all this. Inside the scene is our fxml, and our fxml has our label, our text field, our other label, and our button. Now, if we go back over to controller, we remember that we have our on calculate button pressed, and whenever we press the calculate button, according to this, on action for the button is on calculate button pressed. It'll call that method. So whenever we click that calculate height button, it should print out the button was clicked. So let's try that now. If we click it, look at that. The button was clicked. And every time we click it, it'll print it again. Awesome. Everything is hooked up. Everything is working. We are good at this point. Things are going good. Awesome. So we can get rid of that print statement. And let's try and just print out whatever the user has typed in the height text field. That seems pretty easy. So we will have a system.out.println, and we're going to print out our height text field .get text. You know, pretty simple. We have a getter for the heights for the text field's text. Awesome. So if we tell it to run again, it'll close and it'll open again. And now if we type something in here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and click the button, it should print out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if we change this to just 1, 2, and hit the button again, it'll just print out 1, 2. And if we really want, we can type in a whole bunch of just randomness and hit calculate, and it prints out our whole bunch of randomness. Awesome. So things are linking together. We are getting things connected. Everything is just kind of working. And it's awesome. Things are linking behind the scenes. We really haven't written that much code. We have written 5 lines here, really, plus the launch, and like 3 lines here. That's pretty good, you know, for some drag and drop stuff in our scene builder. And, you know, like not many lines of code. We get an entire program that just prints out whatever you type in the box. That's not too bad, if you ask me. But we want to make it do more. We want to make it actually be the meme. We want a new window to pop up and it to say your height is whatever you typed in. All right. So not too bad. So let's do that. Let's get rid of this print statement and just assign the height text field's text variable to a variable that we have. So we'll say string height because text in a text field is a string, and it'll be our height text field get text. Awesome. So now we have our height and it's saved away for us in a variable. Now let's start creating a new window. If we look back at our main, what does a window need? A window needs a stage, the actual window itself. It needs a scene, the content inside the window that has the height and the width. And it needs some kind of view. In this case right here, it's whatever's loaded from our fxml. Whereas we are now going to create it in code. Just real simple, just, you know, a little label and a little grid. Real easy. So let's first create by making that view layout. So real easy, grid pane from JavaFX. Grid pane, we'll call it grid pane because that seems like a pretty good name to me. New grid pane. Real easy, just like that. Now we have a grid pane that we can work with. Now let's make a label to go inside that grid pane. Pretty easy, pretty self-explanatory. Label from JavaFX. Label, and as we can see, every time we hit enter on one of those, it should be importing something. So if something turns red, and it's just not importing it. So make sure it imports it. Label equals a new label. Now we can do label.setText to set the text in the label. We'll make it say your height is string concatenation, or yeah, whatever it's called. Adding strings together, height, so whatever the user typed in the height box, plus inches, period. Your height is height inches. Awesome. Now we can say our grid pane, we are going to add our label to column 0, row 0. Row 0, column 0. One of those is rows and one of them is columns. I think this is column, this is row. But regardless, we only want one row and one column, so just 0 for both of them. It's a quick Google search to figure out which one's which. OK, now our label is in our grid pane. Pretty easy. So now we need a scene, the content for the window. So pretty self-explanatory. Scene from JavaFX. Scene equals a new scene. And if we remember from before in our main class, scene needs the topmost root layout item and the width and the height. So we're going to make this the topmost layout item for this scene is our grid pane. And we'll make this, kind of wide, 200 pixels wide by 50 tall. It doesn't need to be very tall. OK. Now we have a scene. Now what do we need for the scene? Well, we need a window, the window to hold the scene. And windows, if we remember, are called stages from JavaFX. Stage is a new stage. Easy peasy. We can set the title for this stage. Set title, results, sure. And now we need to put our scene inside our stage. Put the window content inside the actual window. So stage.setScene, like we had before, to our scene that we created up here.
Wait,
that
Turner.
puts, yeah.
Good question. I joined really late and I kind of missed like half the thing. So are you gonna post the video on YouTube?
Yeah, we're recording. We'll post it.
Awesome. Okay, then I'm gonna go and wait for that video because right now I'm lost.
No problem.
I
We've
am-
done a lot up until this point.
Yeah, I
Built this whole
I
view.
literally saw this and I thought I was not in space anymore. So I'll be gone, Turner. Thank you for
All
this
right.
though, and I
Yeah.
like
Yeah, no problem. Later. OK. Now that our stage has the scene, our window has the content, let's show this window. Stage.show, just like we had from before. Awesome. So now, in theory, assuming this all works, when the calculate button was pressed, it'll capture the height from our height text field, height text field.getText, and store it in the variable height. And then we start actually creating view stuff. So we create the grid pane, call it grid pane. We create a label, call it label. And then label.setText to your height is our height from our height text field, inches, however tall you are, however tall the user puts in they are. We're not going to deal with if the user types in letters. It's fine if they type in letters. It doesn't matter to us because we're not actually doing anything. We're just kind of copying and pasting what they type in from one spot to another spot, basically. So we set the label's text to that. And then we add the label to the grid pane, gridpane.add our label to the 0th column and row. And then we create a new scene. We create content for a window. So the scene has the grid pane as the topmost layout item. If we look back at our scene builder, we can see here that in this view specifically, the anchor pane is the topmost layout item. In this one, our topmost layout item is a grid pane. That's just kind of how the two connect. It doesn't matter that much, but it helps to know how they connect. So the scene, its topmost layout item is the grid pane. We're making it 200 wide and 50 tall. Pretty easy. Kind of wide, not too tall. And then we're making a stage, calling it stage. The stage is, if we remember, a window. Stage is just a special kind of window. And we're setting the stage's title to results. So it'll say results up here in our new window. And then we give the stage a scene of the scene that we created. And then we show the stage. That all should happen when the calculate button is pressed. Pretty easy, pretty simple. So if we run the program again, it compiles and it launches and loads up. Enter your height. I don't know, we're going to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches. That's how tall we are. So now we click calculate height and we get a new window that says your height is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches. There we go. We have made the meme. It doesn't look as pretty because this is using Windows Forms, and that makes things a little more Windows-like. But it works. We have a window, and we have a window that creates another window. And we are pulling info from a text field. We're setting a label's text to something else. We have buttons that have event handlers on them. And, you know, that's basic GUI programming in JavaFX. And not too long, just like, you know, a little under an hour. Not too bad. If we were to keep clicking calculate height, we get a lot of windows. Every time we click calculate height, it creates a new scene, a new stage, a new label, a new grid pane, and shows the new stage. Whoa. And apparently you can full screen it. And so that just kind of works. Awesome. Were there any issues up to this point? Any confusion, any questions? Does everybody understand 100% of GUI programming at this point?
Yes.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's a lot to learn. It's a steep learning curve, you know, figuring out, okay, well, what makes up a window? Well, a window has content. A window has, you know, a title. Well, what's inside the window content? Well, it's a grid in the background. It doesn't look like a grid here, but it is a grid. It's this grid. You know, it takes a little bit of learning to think through it all. But once it works, it feels really cool. It feels really slick, and it just kind of works. A lot of things happen for us automatically. Like to link up our view to our controller, we just had to say fx controller was controller instead of whatever it was before. And as it goes along in our view, in our scene builder, it's adding all this code to the actual XML file that we don't have to deal with. You know, if we look through here somewhere, we see that we're using the bold font for our top label. You know, you can read all this. If you wanted, you could type this instead of using Scene Builder to do it. But really, Scene Builder is way easier. But even still, if you wanted to actually create your things in code, it's not that hard. I mean, this is 3, 4, 5, 7, 9 lines to create an entire new window with a label. Not that bad, if you ask me. I mean, a lot of stuff is abstracted away for us. You know, we click on things over here in our scene builder. On action, it's going to call the calculate button pressed method. And then it just kind of magically does. That stuff happens for us by JavaFX. And things just work. And as long as we get the right imports, things are good. You know, not too bad. And I think that's all I got. I am happy to answer questions, explain things better, explain things differently, you know, whatever is needed. Feel free to, you know, speak up, send stuff in chat, whatever.
You should be our new professor.
You know, I mean, it's one thing. Yeah, the professors, the department determines what they have to teach and how they have to teach it, kind of, to an extent. You know, the slides are the same through for all the departments. So, you know, Malcolm and Mokhtar, they don't get to choose really what they teach. It's chosen by the department, and the tests are created by the department. The assignments and the labs are created by the department, not by Mokhtar, not by Malcolm, not by whoever else. Just kind of, you know, so they don't get to teach it kind of how they want to teach it. Mokhtar goes off on his own tangents and does things his own way sometimes, and usually that doesn't work too well, but that's beyond the point. But it's not completely their fault that it's not super great. Different teachers have different teaching styles, but they're kind of they're being forced as a square peg into a round hole. It's just not easy in some sense. Whereas in this, I got to choose what I wanted to teach and how I wanted to teach it. I chose to do a meme because, I wanted to have fun with this. And I feel like we had fun, and I feel like I went over the big hurdles, pointing IntelliJ and Java to the actual JavaFX SDK, copying that path and putting it in the right spots, and explaining why things work the way they work. It's something that a teacher can't always do. So.
Well, yeah, that's fair. That's a good explanation. I do wish there was more cohesiveness with the department.
Yeah, I definitely think there could be more, but
So it's not 100% Mockter, even if he
Right.
does have his wild moments. Like a lot of it is derived from the, I guess, like just
the mammal and the pen.
the planning of the department's not great overall.
Right. But that just kind of is how it is in college. My comment wasn't just because it's a lot to take in, but because I feel like there's a lot more we could go into. So yes, there's so much more we could go into. If we look over here, there's all these different kinds of containers we can put things in. There's all different kinds of controls we can put in. There's Gluon, which is the company that makes JavaFX, or the group that makes JavaFX, and it has a whole bunch of different stylized things that make it look more like an app or look more like a computer program. You have menu items. There's miscellaneous things like, canvases and tooltips for when you hover on things, something pops up. You can make shapes and pretty lines and things and charts and 3D stuff. There's so much to GUI programming that really you just can't even get into in an hour or in a 1322 class, a level 2 programming class. There is so much to it, and it is so fun to learn. I mean, personally, that's why I love making apps, is because I like to make things that I can see. Yeah, making little things pop up in the console, that's cool, but it's not cool. It's not fun. Whereas something like this, where you can, you end up with just a program that you can run and you can make it look pretty and you can add colors and you can make it do whatever you want when you click a button. That kind of creativity it's a wonderful outlet for that kind of creativity. It is so fun, and there's so many things you can do with it. It's just a blast, in my opinion. I might have skipped a sentence. Yeah, this week's labs will probably end up being the end of it, which, is sad. I mean, I 100% encourage you to look more into this. There's tons of great resources out there on JavaFX. It's been around for a while. It's got it's pretty popular. It's, fairly popular. It's just a lot of fun. GUI programming is a lot of fun. And I mean, if you enjoy doing stuff like this is all app development is. App development is just GUI programming on a phone. You have a couple other things, like notifications, and you can do stuff with cameras and stuff and gyroscopes and all that kind of fun stuff. But at the end of the day, you end up getting code that looks a lot like this when you're making apps. You make a grid pane, you make a label, you set the label's text to something, you add the label to some kind of layout group. This is what app development is. I mean, and that's what I enjoy doing. That's what I've been doing for years now. And it's what I want to do for like a lot more years to come. So, I mean, this is just a ton of fun to me personally. I'm sure there's some people who find it a ton of fun too. And I'm sure that there's those of you out there that think, wow, this is boring. This is stupid. Why would I do this when other companies will just make the programs for me? It's some people it's for, and it's not for other people. Just one of those things in life. But I had fun. I have fun doing this kind of thing. Anyways, I go on tangents. Are there any other questions, any other things you'd like me to explain before we end this?
How can I access the recording after the meeting?
Yeah, I totally skipped over that question. You definitely asked it. I'll throw it up on YouTube, and I'll send the link in the group me's and make sure it gets out there. It'll be up hopefully by the end of the night, if not by tomorrow.
Right on. Thanks.
Awesome. I hope you guys had fun. I know at least Luke had fun.
Hey, yeah. You made it seem pretty straightforward and easy.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
pretty
it's
confident now in the assignment.
awesome. That is what I like to hear.
Yeah, totally. I think you saved me there.
Awesome. I mean, I had fun. If you have any other questions, you're always welcome to hit me up on GroupMe. Sometimes I don't get notifications, so I don't see things. So, just don't be afraid to double text me or something. you
Right
know,
on.
awesome. And with that, we can end the recording. This will be up on YouTube sometime in the near future.